You know what's insane? We have amp sims that sound 99% as good as the most expensive amps and cabs out there. And the AI can make videos that look like this.
With effects!
We're on the verge of building the Matrix, and still, arguably, the thing that causes just about the most problems and headaches live and in the studio is guitars going out of tune. It's true. For those of you who may not know, when you're in the studio, you might retune after every single take, or even after every single chord, because being out of tune just a fraction of a note can be enough to screw up the entire mix. And live, if you're fighting your guitar to stay in tune all night, it's going to be pretty hard to play your best show. Which is why I believe that out of all of the guitar gear that's come out in the past 20 years, the single greatest invention since the Kemper profiling amp is the Evertune bridge. I know that this is a controversial statement. You know, for a simple looking bridge, it might be the most hated guitar mod out there. If you've somehow never heard of it, the Evertune is a fully mechanical bridge that does exactly what it says. It keeps your guitar in tune, like actually in tune. No matter what. It uses a spring-based system to automatically compensate for changes in string tension, temperature, bending, heavy picking, whatever, and it keeps everything rock solid without a single line of code or digital assistance. You know, I've heard it all. It's a crutch for bad players. It ruins your tone. It's too complicated. You can't even bend on it. Most of that is complete bullshit, and the parts that aren't are completely missing the point. The Evertune isn't just about staying in tune. It's about saving your time, your money, and most importantly, your creative energy. It's a tool that removes one of the biggest, most frustrating obstacles in the studio, and it allows you to focus on what actually matters. The performance. Today, I'm going to show you why this is the one mod I truly can't live without. I'm going to debunk the myths, show you how it works, and demonstrate that it can make you a better, more efficient producer and player. And in case you're wondering, Evertune has exactly zero involvement with this video. For those who don't know me, I'm Eyal Levi, CEO of URM Academy. I've been a producer and guitarist in my band Doth since 1999 and have been playing way longer than that. And in all those years in the studio, both as a producer and an artist, I can tell you that the biggest single time suck, the biggest momentum killer, the thing that can grind your session to a miserable halt is a tuning nightmare. I'm talking about those days where your guitar just refuses to cooperate. I've had quite a few situations in the studio where you spend literally the entire day tuning and get nothing recorded. Nothing. You check the setup, you check the intonation, you change the strings, you do all of the things you know to do, and it still won't tune.
Tuning was never an issue. I'd be done with guitar so fast, but it's always an issue.
Maybe it's the weather, maybe it's the humidity, I don't know, but it's a real thing. And when you're making a modern metal record with tons of layers, sometimes quad-tracked rhythms, you are tuning constantly. Sometimes you're even tuning to the specific chord you're playing just to get it right. All that time adds up. It breaks the creative flow. It costs the band money, and it's just infuriating. And that's before you even think about playing live. The Evertune bridge solves so many problems that both engineers and guitar players have faced forever. So how does it solve these problems? You know, people love to hate on things they don't understand. So let's break it down. The biggest myth is that you can't bend or do vibrato on an Evertune. That's just flat out wrong. And to understand why, you need to understand the zones. The Evertune is a totally manual system of springs and levers for each string. When you bend a string on a regular guitar, you increase the tension on that string and the pitch goes up. Evertune's job is to keep that tension constant the whole time.
Now, as I'm further winding the tuner, the string stays relatively in pitch. It's in this zone that if we will want to tune the guitar, we use the Evertune key at the saddle. Note that when in zone 2, when you bend the string, the saddle will move. Look at this. And the string won't bend in pitch.
So zone 1 is basically slack. You're not tuned up yet. Zone 2 is the magic part. The springs are engaged and the tension stays constant. You can bend, you can pull the string, and the pitch will not change. This is perfect for recording heavy, precise rhythm parts. But what if you want to bend? That's zone 3. If you keep tightening the tuning peg on the headstock, you'll eventually pull the string past the Evertune's limit, and it will start to act just like a normal fixed bridge guitar. You can bend, You can do vibrato, whatever you want. The real sweet spot for most players is right on the edge between zones 2 and 3. You set it up so that your normal playing and picking doesn't change the pitch, but when you dig in for a bend, you push the string into zone 3 and the note goes sharp, just like you'd expect. Here's Ola England showing you exactly how to find that spot.
This is zone 3. This is where you've gone too far. The Evertune saddle is not active anymore. Stop and go back to the point before you went to zone 3, where your string was in tune. You're back in zone 2, and when you bend into zone 3. Now here, I will be able to bend, and the string is in tune.
So there you have it. The whole you can't bend on an Evertune argument is dead. It's just about setting it up correctly for what you want. Now, let's talk about why this is such a monster for recording metal. Well, first of all, you can play hard. Personally, I think that playing harder usually sounds better, especially on down-picked rhythms, but on a regular guitar, the harder you play, the sharper it goes. You're constantly fighting between getting that aggressive tone and staying in tune, but with Evertune, that fight is over. You can dig in as hard as you want and get an absolutely devastating, perfectly in tune tone.
It's very easy to make a guitar go out of tune by picking too hard, and Evertune can prevent the guitar from going sharp when laying into the strings, making it a great tool for studio and live use, as well as correcting for differences in players' techniques.
Another huge problem is what I refer to as death grip, and that's where a guitar player's fretting hand digs in too hard and pushes the notes sharp. You can hear this on chords, you can hear this on single notes. Like, if they do death grip, they do it everywhere, and Evertune solves this problem.
Death grip is another example of an inconsistency in playing technique that can be compensated for with the Evertune bridge in a way that no other guitar can. A lot of people will tend to death grip that chord change there, and I certainly did when I was playing on the PRS. But since the Evertune is set up on the edge of zone 2 and 3, the force that I hit that first fret with was not enough to actually pull the guitar out of tune.
You know, if you're a guitar player with death grip, you can and should practice enough to break that habit. But if you're a producer who's recording guitar players, you may not have that luxury. You just got to get great takes no matter what. You got to do what you got to do. This also means that you can get things like low string octaves to sound perfectly in tune. On a normal guitar, those are almost impossible to hold without them sounding sour. With an Evertune, they are rock solid, which creates a huge stable foundation for you to layer other instruments over without anything fighting. And that leads to one of the biggest workflow benefits, which is capturing that perfect demo tape you can actually use on the record. We've all been there. You nail a part on the demo, the vibe is great, but it's out of tune and therefore useless. With an Evertune, your demos can be end-state quality. If you capture lightning in a bottle, you can actually use it on the final record. But what about the drawbacks? The biggest argument I hear is about the tone tax. The theory is that because you remove a chunk of wood to install the bridge, you lose a lot of resonance and sustain. Honestly, I think that's kind of overblown. In my experience, the only time an Evertune really starts to sound weird is when the strings are going dead, but with a fresh set of strings, I can barely hear the difference. But even if there is some tiny difference, the benefit you get from being completely in tune, being able to play harder and work way faster, well, that totally overshadows it. My friend and fellow producer did a side-by-side comparison of recording the same part with both an Evertune and a fixed bridge. I'll let you watch that video. The time difference between the two is just staggering.
That's the tonal difference that I'm hearing, but we're not really listening to the pickups again. The real difference is that one took a fraction of the time to get done. I really just didn't have to tune in between takes for the Schecter or tune to specific chords, and as a result, it was much less of a headache to get done.
Now, one thing that I do agree with the haters on is retrofitting. I've heard from a lot of people who have gotten an Evertune installed on their favorite fixed bridge guitar that they just weren't happy with the result. I don't know the science behind it, but I'm guessing that carving a giant hole in a guitar that you're already familiar with and like is going to change the way it feels and sounds. My advice is to buy a guitar from the factory that comes with an Evertune already installed. Lots of manufacturers offer this. That way, the instrument is designed and built from the ground up to have an Evertune. You're not doing weird surgery on it. The other myth is that it's super complicated. I was actually pretty resistant too. because I thought it was going to be this giant pain in the ass. But once I actually learned how to use it, I felt like a complete idiot because it's so easy. Way easier than using a Floyd Rose, that's for sure. On our last tour, Andy Thomas from Rivers of Nile had just gotten an Evertune guitar, and he was pretty intimidated by it. He had built it up in his head to be this super complex, crazy thing. I literally showed him how to change strings and tune it in about 5 minutes. He was blown away. It's really not that scary once you understand the zones concept. So let's talk about some more advanced tips. Even though it's called an Evertune, it's not a synth. It's not going to be 100% in tune the whole time. You still need to check on it. The difference is with a normal guitar, you're trying to stay within a 10 to 15 cent range of being in tune. With an Evertune, your window of focus narrows down to just 1, 2, or 3 cents. This can actually play head games with you. You become so hyper-focused on these tiny fluctuations that you can start to hear things as out of tune when nobody else on earth would even notice. My trick for this is simple. If you're starting to go crazy, just walk away. Come back the next day with fresh ears. I guarantee you probably will not even notice that thing that you were obsessing over. Another thing I love about it is how fast you can change strings. I timed myself changing all the strings on a 7 once and did 7 strings, 7 minutes. You don't have to stretch them. You just put the string on, bring it to tension, do a quick fine tune at the saddle, and you're done. This is a lifesaver in the studio or on stage if you break a string and need to get back to playing quickly. Finally, there's one more hidden benefit that nobody talks about. Evertunes are quiet. On a guitar with a tremolo system, the springs in the back can ring out sympathetically, creating noise that gets amplified by high gain tones, and you cannot EQ that shit out. I usually have to stuff foam in the back of my tremolo-equipped guitars to dampen those springs. With an Evertune, that problem just doesn't exist. No spring noise. At the end of the day, an Evertune is a tool that makes the experience of recording guitars undeniably better. It eliminates the biggest sources of frustration and wasted time and lets you dedicate all of that reclaimed energy to being creative, which is the whole point. Look, I know plenty of amazing guitar players who have tried them and don't like them, and that's totally fine. You don't have to like it. But if you've been avoiding them because of all the hate you're seeing online, or you think it's some sort of magic voodoo or some crazy tech that's ruining music, I hope this has cleared things up for you. It's an incredible piece of engineering that solves some very real problems. And if you want to see more of how professional producers solve these kinds of real-world recording challenges, you should check out Nail the Mix. Every month, we get a top-tier producer to mix a song from scratch using the actual multi-tracks from bands like Gojira, Lamb of God, and Meshuggah, showing you exactly how they tackle everything from tuning issues to phase problems to getting massive tones. It's the closest you can get to sitting in on a real session. Link is in the description. Well, we've come to the end of another one. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think of Evertune. Like, share, subscribe. See you next time.